Hello everyone and welcome to this edition of HCS Matters. I'm John Wright, the Public Relations Director for Hardin County Schools. And earlier this week, we're taping this the week before spring break, and earlier this week we announced that Hardin County Schools has hired on or brought into the HCS family a home, school, and community liaison. And Lynnette Kennedy fills that role for us, and thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Tell me what exactly it is that you're going to be doing, and I know, but I want you to tell everybody else what you're going to be doing for us.
Okay, so like you said, I am the home, school, community outreach liaison, and so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be working with any students or families that are homeless or experiencing homeless, on the verge of being homeless. So anybody who is living in a hotel, living in a car, doubling up with, couch surfing, doubling up. Anybody who's in those situations, those are the families I'm going to be working with. I'll get all my referrals from the family resource coordinators. So that's who gives us the referrals. So the family resource coordinators are still a vital part of this because they're on the grounds with the students, and that's exactly what I'll be doing, working with them.
Now, I think when people hear homeless, they hear or envision living on the street, in a tent, in a whatever. But that's not necessarily what we call homeless, not what you're going to call homeless.
No. Anybody who is not, any kid that is not getting what we call an adequate nighttime rest. An adequate nighttime rest. They don't have the facilities at home. They're sleeping on couches, they're sleeping in hotels, they're sleeping in cars. They're sleeping in houses that are not adequately safe. Anything that's like that, that's what's considered homeless for this definition. Anybody who's doubled up, living with somebody, living with some other friends because of economic hardship. So anybody who does not have their own stable home, that's what we consider homeless.
And I guess, Lynnette, it's hard to imagine a student being homeless, but I'm sure you have seen that before you started this position, and especially since you've been in it. Without getting specific, obviously, tell us some of the things that you're seeing and some of the situations, maybe, again, without being too specific.
Okay. Like for students to be homeless, when you say a student is homeless, you say, how can that happen? Mm-hmm. They have parents. How is a student homeless? But we do have 18-year-old students who are homeless. There's different scenarios that take place. The top ones that we have seen are students who have been in the state custody for 10 plus years, and then they've signed themselves out of the state custody, and they did not do the process of recommitting. So now they are considered homeless because they don't have anybody, they don't have any family, so they're just, staying with different friends and different things like that, but they want to continue their education. Mm-hmm. So that's just what the key is, keeping those students in school and in the classroom, and that's what they want to do. So that's great. So we want to be there to support them. Mm-hmm. But they are considered homeless because they have no family, they have nobody that's helping to raise them and take care of them. Mm-hmm. So that's the first type of scenario. The next type of scenario, you'll have families, and with these families, they have ran into situations where a job has gotten lost, a medical issue has taken place, and they were really one paycheck from just keeping themselves afloat. And when anything happens, it just spiraled out of control. Mm-hmm. So, in that situation, we have, families that were living with families and it didn't work out, other families, and they got put out and that didn't work out. Domestic violence situations caused the families to be homeless. Like I said, medical issues, a car accident, anything could have taken place. Mm-hmm. And now these families have spiraled out of control because it just gets overwhelming really quick, really fast.
You used a phrase there, in the classroom. And when you and I talked the other day, there's a difference between being in school and being in the classroom, and that's where you want those children, is in the classroom.
Yes.
Define that a little bit more for me.
In the classroom, the reason why that's important is because, people can go to school, but if they're spending all their time in the family resource center or in the library because they're tired, they're exhausted, they're not in class, they're not in the classroom learning. So we want to keep them in the classroom learning. So how are we going to do that? If we help solve this issue and get them the resources they need to have the housing, that way they're getting an adequate amount of sleep at night and getting the things that they need, then they're able to come to school and able to get in the classroom and learn and not have to spend the time out in the family resources or just trying to figure out what they need to do. So they're spending a lot of time outside of the classroom, but we want to keep them in the classroom because we know that education is the key. If we educate somebody, we can take them to the next level if they understand what needs to go on.
This happens kindergarten to senior in high school, fair statement?
Yes. Yes, it affects everybody.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have a homelessness. Is not. It's not partial to anybody. It could happen to anybody at any time. So, I mean, just to be able to connect with the community and have the resources available, that we know what to do and to come up with an action plan for that, that's what's very important for us here at Hardin County Schools.
And homelessness can take place in any part of the county. Some folks may have in their mind a stereotype where it may happen in one portion of the county or another, but I'm sure you've seen it district-wide in the short time you've been here.
All the way from Lakeview all the way to Ratcliffe Elementary. I've seen it taking place in both ends of the county. So east, west, everything. So it doesn't matter. All the families that we work with so far, I mean, it's just, like I said, it's a wide range. It's not even one specific. So each plan is going to be individualized. It can't be just a blanket plan. We're going to do this for everybody. It can't even happen because everybody's situation is different. We have to go through and see what they have already used, what resources they have already utilized before, and then build from there. So we just basically do an intake and figure out exactly where we need to start from there, and working with the families, or like I said, with the 18-year-old students, to figure out what the action plan is.
But why do we need this? I mean, we've gone along all this time without it. Why do we need it now? Why? I mean, we do. No question.
Yes.
But why?
Because the numbers are growing. I mean, the problem is growing.
That's what I want you to say.
The problem is growing. So if we don't try to put some brakes on it now, it's just going to spiral out of control, because we know that one thing that takes place is time. Time doesn't stop. So you have this kindergartner this is happening to now. They grow up to be a third grader. They grow up to be an eighth grader. They grow up to be a senior in high school. And we never did address any of these issues to try to help their families be self-sufficient. Because in the end, you want a community that's self-efficient. You don't want a whole bunch you want to give people hand up and not just a lot of handouts. Yes, handouts are great, but we also need to teach people how to be self-efficient. So that's why this is important, because it's growing leaps and bounds. With our homeless population here in our county, you know, at first for years they would say, we don't have any homeless. We have homeless. You know, we didn't know where to find them. But now there's been a lot of organizations that have come together and have identified how many homeless families or homeless people that we have. The hotels have identified a lot of how many people that they have. So, I mean, with that count, that's why we need to get ahead of it.
And homelessness or transitional housing or these type situations, they can become cyclical. I mean, they can be something that really never ends unless there is just a hard stop to it. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, it is. It is. I mean, you have to, it just comes generation after generation after generation after generation, and they don't know. I mean, you can't do something that you've never been taught to do. So it's not a bad thing. But I mean, somebody has to step up, and I'm glad that Hardin County, it's a school district, we have decided that we're going to do something. So not only are we going to help these families right now, but we're also going to be able to add things like what we're doing with Parent University and different things like that to add the education component to what's taking place in our school system. So not just stopping there, but actually going out in the community and find out what are the resources where people can come in and help do some educational training, on banking, on repair credit, on workshops and different things like that we can offer our families to help them be more self-efficient.
Well, I have confidence that this is going to work because you are a relationship builder. I've known you about a week, and you you seem like you're a long lost friend, but tell me how important that is to build those relationships out in the community so you can help our students.
Yeah, I mean, we have to get out in the community and build those relationships and let them know that, our students are important, because that's the most important. That's the reason why we're doing this, is because our students. But relationships, community partners. We're not in this alone. I mean, we're just doing one part of this, is we're just having the education side of it. But just like you said, it's going to take a community to embrace this and to lift everybody up. And like I said before, if we can teach a person how to fish, we're going to feed them for a lifetime. If we just hand them a fish, we're just feeding them for the day. And that's okay. We do have to have programs in place to feed them for the day, but we got to build those relationships where we can feed them for a lifetime. What does that look like? Are we feeding them for a lifetime? And if we're not, then what can we do to make that happen? We may have to do the daily feeding for a little bit, and that's okay. We will have to do that. And I mean, there's not saying that that's not going to be a goal that we're not going to put in place, but the end goal is to teach them how to do it. And then if we teach them how to do it and we build those relationships within the parents and within the families and within the community, and we teach everybody how to do it, then we're all a little better off. We're all better off because now people are being more self-efficient. Now they're able to give back. And that's what the whole goal is. I mean, when I talk to families now, I said, when you get out of this, remember you need to give back. And they say, I will give back when once I get through this. And that's what it's all about, is giving back and building those relationships.
There's a program that you're going to start, and I want to talk a little bit about it here in just a second. But I think when they see you, and obviously you've got the energy and the personality to give them this, but I think hope would probably be a big piece of what they get out of a conference or out of sitting down with you.
Yeah, and I see that. I seen that right before I came here today. I had a family, and I was following up with them, and I was like, hey, how did the phone calls go? Did you call this? Did you do this? And they was like, no, I didn't do it yet. And I was like, it's been 2 days. Like, why you didn't do it? And, they really didn't have the answer. It was just dead silence. And I say, you got to do this. And I said, if they say no, we move forward. If they say yes, we move forward. Regardless, we still have to move forward. And, that, I think that just woke them up, and they was just like, you're right. Regardless, we have to move forward. I mean, it's not over. So whatever they say, a yes or a no, we just got to know which direction we need to go. But not having an answer is not the right thing. So, I mean, and she did say that. She said, right then you gave me hope. And she made the phone calls, and they hadn't even done, it wasn't even a yes or a no. They hadn't finished processing it yet. So it wasn't a yes or a no, but then that gave her the hope that she needed to do it. So I think it's all going to come down to the conversations that we're having, the conversations and building those relationships that give them hope to say, it's not over. We got to just stay focused and stay on task and check off the check marks. And that's what we give them a check sheet, because we got to check the boxes. Did we call this person? What did they say? Did we do this? What did they say? Instead of, no, we didn't do anything.
Right. You and I talked the other day about a program that you're going to start called the First 48. To talk about that.
What I realize is that when something happens, and I talk to all the family resource coordinators, the one thing that stressed them out is like, what do we do? Like, what's our action plan? And so what we're going to develop is called the First 48. This is what Hardin County Schools is going to do the first 48 hours that we find out a student is displaced or, basically homeless. But I mean, when we find out this information, this is what we're going to do, because you got to have time to get it together. I mean, there's a lot of different moving parts and when this happens. So, I mean, before it was just like we'll just get on the phone and we're calling this church, they don't have any money. We're calling this church, they don't have any money. We're calling here, this doesn't have any money. This doesn't happen. But what we're going to develop together collectively is a First 48. So that way we all know in Hardin County, we can stand confident that the first 48 hours, this is what we do for our students. And then we take it from there. So whatever it is that they need, because everybody, like I said, everybody's plan is going to be different. Somebody may need that first 48 to be able to contact family or contact some friends. But when it happens that night at 9 o'clock at night, or when it happens, well, most of the time it happens as soon as they came home from school. The kid got home from school, and they're like, oh, all of our furniture is sitting outside or whatever. And then they call back to school and they say, hey, can you help us? And, and then at that point we're running around. But we're going to be able to have an action plan in place called the First 48.
So what are some of those short-term, we'll talk about long-term resources in a second, but what are some of those short-term resources that you're going to be able to reach out to?
The short-term resources that we do have a new homeless emergency shelter, so we do have that available. We still do have available for any type of vouchers for like a once-in-a-lifetime vouchers, like at the hotels and different things like that. Over the next couple of weeks, we will be talking with some additional hotels to see what they can actually offer us. So those are like the short term. Just really talking the person into it. Do you have any friends that you can live with? Do you have your students? Do you have any classmates? Is there anybody else that can stay? You can stay with. So just looking at whatever options, and they don't usually look at that particular moment. And then really building those relationships with those parents, that they don't wait until it happens, that they talk to us beforehand. So we can actually talk to the landlords and say, what is it that they're doing? What is it that we can help them do? And at that point, so before it happens, before they go to the court. Okay. Because once they go to the court, it's kind of like over at that point. So before that eviction actually takes place, how can we actually help?
So that instills hope. Now that we've got that hope, what do we do long term?
Long term, it comes back to education.
Yes.
It comes back to education. It goes back to we have to educate our community and educate the people that we serve. So we're educating the people that we serve, and we educate the people that can help us serve these people. So in that, it's all in education. Like long term would be credit recovery. Long term would be legal aid, working with legal aid to get a legal divorce. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of them are not legally divorced and they haven't seen their spouse in years, and their spouse has this long criminal background check, and now they can't, when they apply for housing, they're legally married, so now they can't even get approved for housing. Long term would be expungement, because a lot of people, you know, they have done some things, but the expungement laws have changed, and you can get some things expunged from your record, like if you have now a productive citizen and doing what you're supposed to be doing. So we want to look at that. We want to look at expungement clinics and different things like that. Credit repair, how to buy a home, because, you know, if we don't have the rental property here, then we need to teach people how to be self-efficient, to save up their money to be able to get homes. They do have a lot of grants with Kentucky Housing Corporation that we can apply for to be able to help with down payments and different things like that. There are programs that you can get people in. So we want to look at those different programs. So that would be the long term. The long term would be able to walk these families through that they can be able to be homeowners, whatever that looks like.
Right.
I believe in Hardin County we can do that. I mean, I believe that the school can educate them. Long term could be maybe, you know, we can have a trade inside of the school and they can help build homes. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what that looks like, but I mean, you never know what's out there until we just start tackling and nothing. We're not going to just stay inside the box. We're going to just always think outside the box.
You know, and I knew it, I guess, but I didn't think about it a whole lot until you and I talked the other day about a student may be in a situation where they're living with a friend long term, and I guess to me that's just, when I hear that, I mean, that's usually a high school student, but even though they're older, I guess that just tears me up. It just breaks my heart. I mean, what are some situations that could lean into that, and how do you help that student who may be just totally on their own, and, you know, sorry to say that there are some students that are on their own. How do we help that student who's never even, you called them an accompanied minor the other day, how do we help them get out into the real world?
Yes, and first step is, I mean, the first question I've asked them is like, do you have an identification? Most of them don't even have an identification. So, and how do we get an identification? You and I both know that you have to have a birth certificate, original birth certificate, and your social security card in order to get any type of, you know, government ID. So that's the first step, because they have a copy. Somebody may along the way gave a copy to the school, but when you go down to the Department of Vehicle Registration and get your identification, you can't use copies. You actually have to have officials.
The real thing.
So that's like the first step. If they're 18, getting them into the programs for the SNAP programs, because what if they are living with somebody, they don't have a job, but maybe if they can get any SNAP benefits, then they can also qualify and they'll be able to help pay for some food, to be able to pay for something. What is looking for a job? Getting them connected with Kentucky Career Centers that we have locally and seeing what type of jobs. Looking at what their education journey looks like right now, and see if Hardin County Schools, do we have anything within our alternative school programs to be able to assist that they can still be able to work and different things like that. So we have looked at every different possible avenue for that kid. So we're just going down a checklist. Where are they at? Looking at the military as an option, looking at some of the resources that have different housing like Job Corps, the Bluegrass Challenge Academy, looking at all the different avenues that we do have in our community that be able to assist, and they could still be able to graduate, because in the end we want to keep them in the classroom. We want to get the education so that way they can move on to the next step.
This community is very good at embracing people with situations. I mean, we hear hundreds and thousands of stories from the United Way, Helping Hand, those type. I know that you've probably been embraced already as you've gone out and said, "Hey, I'm from Hardin County Schools, and we've got this situation." So.
Yes. And they do, and they embrace it. And when I was out at Lakeview the other day, Lakewood the other day, and I was talking with the family resource coordinator there. I mean, she said the community moves. Like when you have an issue, the community moves, and that's what we want from the community. But once again, we want to make sure that we teach people how to be proactive. You know what I'm saying? What we're going to start doing to be proactive, and so we don't have to always just work in that reactive crisis situation, which, just like you said, it moves people. But, you know, collectively, can we move together proactively so that way when we do have it and we do have the crisis, we can just react, and it's not a crisis react. We can just react because that's what we already planned out. We've already said that. So yes, the community will move. They are moved by the stories. They move by what difference that we can make. You'll hear the numbers, and I'm sure like as we start getting our students, will hear our success stories too, like how that student's going to come back and say, just because you stepped out, you know, and made that phone call to us, we were able to get this and we were able to do this. And because they had given up hope, because, you know, it just kind of like became a cycle. They just could not get out of it. But just being able to move everybody together, but also moving in the reactive where they take the story right then, but also saying, okay, how are we going to just like be proactive in every single thing that we do?
You know, some people kind of give a stereotype, and I've probably been guilty of this in the past, giving a stereotype to somebody that I think is maybe is not as aggressive at taking those next steps. But Lynnette, there are obstacles for folks when they try to take those next steps. And I'm sure you've seen that.
Yes, I mean, I've seen it just by me. I wasn't even looking for housing for myself. I'm just looking for housing for our students and our families. And I already seen when I call and they're like, no, you know, we don't have this, or no, we don't have any vacancies, or no this, or no this. And if you're already down and out and you hear no a lot, I mean, no, it's not bothering me because I'm not actually looking for it. Right. But no, it takes a lot to keep on pushing through and pushing forward and everything like that. And I was talking to my husband the other day, and I was telling him, I said, you know, he's in the military and he retired. And I was like, you know, we had to transition every 3 years. We had to move. And people don't look at it like that. I mean, we went through the same thing. The only difference between us and what you would consider these families that were facing the housing challenges is that we knew that it was coming. So we knew that it was coming, but, you know, we still had to stay in the hotel, you know, until we found additional housing, you know, so there were still things that we had to do in that transition. So I think that experience has helped me too, that I'm not afraid, you know, it's okay. You know, I tell the families, I've had people have to tell me no. I had to find a place for my family to stay before. So, I mean, you got to keep making the phone calls. But if you're not writing it down, you don't know where you went. You know what I'm saying? So if you don't know where you're going, how do you know you got there? So if we don't have a list of where we're going, like we're going here, we're going to check this place, we're going to check this place, and then write down what they said and who you spoke to. And, you know, they're just now beginning to take that, you know, that effort. Where before, you know, because I would ask the parents, did you write this down? I just gave you that phone number. Did you write it down? We need to have a notebook. We need to be writing everything down in the exact same place, not all over the place, because when I'm saying what did they say, you need to be able to explain what did they actually say. So you termed yourself the other day a coach, you said a housing education coach, and just hearing you talk, I'm ready to run through a brick wall for you, and like I said, I've known you all week, but I think that's a good term for what you're trying to do. Yeah, just coach them, because I can't, there's 15,000 students here, and there's no telling how many families that are being in crisis at one time. There's one of me. But what we can do is coach people. And if I can coach not only the people who are in a situation, coach the community, coach our staff, coach our family resources. Everybody can be coached, and then we coach them, and then they go and coach somebody else and tell somebody else. And then that's how it's going to spread. That's how we're all going to be on the field playing in the game. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's going to be up in the bleachers being a spectator checking it out. We're all going to be out there. But at first, everybody's going to be kind of like, what's going on out there? You know, what's really taking place? But, you know, being able to, once they get educated and understand what the play is, then you're okay to get out there in the field and play. You know what I'm saying? When you understand what's going on, then you're like, oh, I can do this part of that. Right. You know, you can't do the whole thing. You know, the quarterback is not expected to do everything, but somebody's expected to know what's going on. That's the coach's responsibility. He knows what's going on across the entire field at one time. Right.
When you see, especially a younger child or any child that, I guess, what's their reaction to being homeless? I mean, I just can't fathom that thought myself.
Yeah, and what I've seen so far is that that's what they're used to. You understand what I'm saying? So the families that I met so far that's been in this crisis, that's what they're just used to. They're used to just staying in a hotel. They're used to like staying with family and being put out in a couple of days. That has become their norm. And I think that for me personally, when I ran into a young lady, probably like 4 years ago, and I met her, and I was taking her to church, and one thing that she showed me was when she seen some pictures of my kids, and then she looked at those pictures and she said, "Your kids, they used to live here in this house." And I was like, I kind of thought that was strange. And I was like, okay, yeah, she's 9, she's talking to me, and I'm like, yes, they lived here. She's like, I don't understand, how did that happen? I was like, what do you mean, how did that happen? You know what I'm saying? They just lived here, and then they grew up, and they went away to college. I don't know. I mean, that's just what you do, And then she's like, I've never had that. We've always moved every 3 months or so. And then she looked at me, and she said, could you show me how to do that? Could you show me that when I have kids that they'll be able to stay someplace for a long time? And that's when I realized that we had a problem. Because they did not understand that. So just like I said, it was their norm. So those kids, that's their norm. That's what they're used to. They're used to moving from place to place to place. That's just their norm. So we got to teach them that that's not their norm without criticizing everybody. Because it's not about pointing the fingers of who's to blame of it. It's about building them up.
We've been, we as a district in some media have been, kind of looked at, and I think we'll probably looked at some more for our behavior and some things related to behavior. But when kids are facing homelessness, or either in homelessness or getting ready to face it, behavior is kind of second fiddle, I guess. But when they're facing that, if I were facing that, I would probably misbehave as well.
And you have them to go 2 different ways. Some of them misbehave, but then some of them just shut down. Some of them just shut down completely. So all of them don't misbehave. They go both ways. They can just go either way. And it's about that student, the teacher in the classroom at that point is seeing that behavior change, seeing like, oh, this was just a happy kid, and like, what happened? Did something happen at home, and what took place, and anything like that? So, I mean, the student can go either way, but just like I said, the students that I've seen right now, the few that I have worked with, I mean, that was just like their norm. They still had hope, and that was good. That's a good thing, that they hadn't lost hope. So they still had hope, and they had hope because their school had became their home.
Right.
We had became their home. So that's what really makes you feel good as a school district, that we had became their home, and they felt comfortable in their parents. Even their parents, were okay with utilizing the family resource centers and stuff like that. And that's what we want to be here for. Sure.
Have you seen or heard of other school districts that are doing something similar to this, or?
I only school district I talked to so far in the short time I've been here is Pike County School District. Okay. And so yes, they are doing programs very similar to this. I mean, they have 5 school districts within their county, so that's something a little bit more diverse than what we have. But I mean, they're doing things the same way that we're doing them, and that's when we're talking with them and having those conversations. And we will be having more conversations with the other counties that are doing it. I want to say right now there are 12 different counties in the state of Kentucky that have came aboard and doing really focusing on the homeless population within their school.
See, when we hear homeless too, and I guess it's just maybe a stereotype, we think maybe larger cities or metropolitan areas, and how can somebody that lives in Radcliffe or Stevensburg or out Bardstown Road or down in Sonora, how can those people be homeless? But we are burdened by that problem, just like Jefferson County, just like Fayette County, just like Boone and Kenton County in northern Kentucky. I guess kind of dispel that myth that it can't happen in Hardin County.
Yeah, and it does, because we don't have a lot of rental property. I mean, you don't have a lot of rental property. So like we said, the definition of homelessness is not the same definition of somebody that's living on the street. Right. If there's not enough low-income housing available where people can be self-efficient on their own, then that becomes the problem. So that's what we have the problem. In those different areas, the further out you go, the more rural it has, then you don't have all of the rental property available. So then that's where we can step in and look at these different grants and stuff to see if we're able to get some grants to home ownership and different things like that for these different families.
If I can help, we're running down on time, but if I can help, if I'm in a position where I can help you do your job and make your job better, well, how do I reach out to you? How do I make your life easier as the home community student liaison for Hardin County Schools?
I mean, just get involved, be open to the relationship, be open to the conversations that we're going to have. be true to them, because we do have people who have problems. Make any type of donations that you can. Even if you got to think, if everybody made a $10 donation, a $10 a month donation, committed and say, I'll give $10 a month to try to help all of these families be more self-efficient. And we be good stewards over that. I mean, can you imagine the impact that a community can make if everybody's just giving $10? And $10 is not a lot to a lot of people, and it could be a lot to some people. But just imagine if everybody did it. So if everybody gave $10 a month, we could make a difference. So just really making sure that everybody understands and is educated on what we're trying to do and what is taking place in our school system. And in the end, we want these kids to be productive citizens.
Coach is a perfect term for you. I'm going to start calling you Coach.
Coach, all right.
We've been talking with Miss Lynnette Kennedy, and she's the homelessness coach. She's the transitional temporary housing coach for Hardin County Schools. So if you have questions about what she does, there's a news release on our website that has her email address on it and her phone number. Please feel free to give her a call. Feel free to give us a call at the central office at 769-8800, and we'll hook you up with Mrs. Kennedy. So it's been a great time speaking with her, and we'll see you again on another edition of HCS Matters.